Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is YamatoCannon's meta check. Last time I did this video was last week. This is to highlight what I think are the meta trends, to talk about what I think is strong, what I think is bad, what I think is successful, what I am predicting in terms of changes. The criteria that I'm basing everything of is, as you can see the example here on the screen. S tier is basically champions you can never go wrong with. A tier are like champions that can maybe compete with S tier champions in the right scenario, but they are more fragile to counters more than anything. B tier is champions that can do fine into everything above. Still needs to be a specific scenario. There needs to be some significant gain behind giving up anything that's above. And then C tier, just whatever, champions that are being played but are not that great. Niche is champions that are really good in some scenarios, really bad in some scenarios, meaning, it is completely dependent on the picks. Bait is pretty much like picks that with my personal opinion, I don't think they are good, and they just weaken your draft as you send them into a specific lane. And then hidden OP. OP might be the wrong word, but it's more about champions that might belong in the meta and might find their way through, and I'll give my reasonings as to why. So if there are some champions that I don't talk about, it is probably because I have covered them in the previous meta check. This is mostly to talk about changes, so I don't sit here and repeat myself all day, because that's not what I want to do. But first and foremost, S tier, the changes to AD carry. The big changes is on my list is that I put Aphelios up. I put Misfortune and Syndra in their own tier. The reason as to why is just Misfortune doesn't belong in the same tier as Varus and all of this other crap. Misfortune is definitely stands out as the AD carry that is super strong. We've seen many games now in LCK where Misfortune is being used properly. They are playing these snowball games through bottom into taking Drake, into taking Rift, into continuously taking Drakes, and then finding this big climax fight at Dragons. That is a trend that the LCK is going with, and Misfortune fits the bill perfectly. She gives you a lot of early game prio. She has decent scaling, good itemization. I think what it comes down to is just that the early game pressure that Misfortune gives is so important. But I still think Soraka, Sena, and Aphelios are better. So Thresh, Zed are Sena and Aphelios. My tier list doesn't have these new champions, so it's Zed and Thresh. I think Thresh is fitting thematically. Soraka, only good if you have Soraka together. Honestly, I think Zaya is very low tier otherwise. And that's it, So I think Soraka, Sena, Aphelios are better. Misfortune, Syndra comes in at a very close second because they can, in the right matchups with the right support, they can easily contest any of the above. I just think that Soraka, Sena, and Aphelios, you can never go wrong with picking these champs. Misfortune, Syndra, you can go wrong maybe 5% of the cases, and then B tier maybe 70% of the cases you don't go wrong, so forth. The reason I put Draven hidden OP is because nobody's actually playing it, but I think it can be used as a counter into Misfortune. Misfortune has a very hard time playing against Draven, and I'm curious to see how well, for example, a Draven does into an Aphelios. Senna should be hard, and Soraka still, Draven can be played into it with a Morgana and so forth. I think that summarizes AD carry quite fine. Next thing in line, I'm just going to go over to mid lane because of these little pictures that I put up there because I forgot to put them on the tier list. Some changes here as well. Qiyana going down to B tier because of her nerfs in jungle. So the last video was called 10.2 competitive, but we are now officially playing on 10.2. Qiyana with her jungle nerfs, that makes her mid lane also worse because the flex is so important, and without the flex she becomes significantly weaker. Still think she's strong in some cases with the right jungler if you play with Elise. Same with Pantheon. I think they belong in a very similar tier. I moved Azir, Victor down to C tier because I just don't think they're as good as the rest. So this is one of the most significant changes. Lucian went from niche to A tier because I think Lucian still as a laner is one of the strongest in the game. I think lane-wise he's super strong. Not a lot of teams use it, so people might argue against that. I think that's completely fine. I think there are some teams that are going to play it, especially in the LPL. We saw Perks and G2 play it. Lucian's lane phase is very powerful and he has very little counters. So I'm a big fan of Lucian mid lane. LeBlanc, Syndra, Rumble, self-explanatory. Rumble with before the nerfs to his W. Very strong in the mid lane, has very few weak matchups and a very powerful ultimate. I think the LCK has showcased us why Rumble can be very good. LeBlanc, Syndra, you cannot go wrong with these champs, and Akali is just plain broken, so of course she belongs in her own tier. I forgot Zoe on the last list. Zoe definitely one of the better blind picks when a lot of these mid laners are out of the picture. Hard to go wrong with Zoe. She has a hard time against a lot of tanks, a lot of engage, because she of course wants to itemize spell penetration. If she can't, then it's rougher. Orianna, Ryze, Cassio, self-explanatory. Galio, niche. Galio, I think, is good into Rumble. Not so good into the rest of the pool that we saw up there. That's why I'm putting it on niche, because it's hard to slot it into any specific scenario. It's heavily dependent on team comp. You need a good ult target. You need to have an idea of what you want to snowball, because Galio is going to lose lane against anything of the above, unless you pick it into Pantheon, or maybe... yeah, that's maybe it. Even Pantheon should win, honestly. Irelia also niche, very risk-prone champion. Vladimir, niche, some cases very good into Pantheon, into Yasuo. Yasuo also, I almost want to put him... I think if you have a really good Yasuo, I think Yasuo is like B tier, A tier. But not a lot of people, not a lot of teams are good enough to play Yasuo. Not a lot of players. Mordekaiser also niche. You're supposed to gain something really significant in top lane if you put Mordekaiser mid, because I don't think it's the greatest mid laner. It can be played into some melee matchups, so I'll hold my reservations to say that Mord is a shit mid laner, is because everyone's kind of open to play anything. The reason I put Ornn in hidden OP is because, sure, teams play it. We saw Nemesis play it. It's not that it's hidden. It's just that it's utilized too little. I think Ornn top becomes significantly worse if there's no flex involved. I think Ornn can be jungle. I think Ornn can be support. I think Ornn can be mid lane, and there's a lot of matchups that Ornn does fine in. So even though it's not hidden in any world, I'm not saying that I'm discovering something new here. I think Ornn is heavily underutilized in terms of the flex. And when we see him constantly being sent into the top lane, that completely deflates his win ratios. His win ratios are very bad. Horrible, in fact. And because of that, Ornn is in a very weird spot. Nautilus mid lane, I still think is really OP. Like if you play Nautilus and Lee Sin, your 2v2 is super strong. FPX played it once this year. It is such an easy way to victory, because the 2v2 mid lane is almost unbeatable. And I think people should play it more. It was OP during the World Championship. Nothing has changed. Sure, he has gotten some nerfs on his Q, some damage nerfs, but I don't think it's enough to make a difference. And on top of that, you might have some leeway to get a better bot matchup. You also flex, and I think it's a very interesting pick, especially when mid laners start to get banned. Like when LeBlanc is out, all of a sudden Nautilus mid, I think, is one of the best champions in the game. Tristana mid is also very interesting. I think with Syndra coming back, there is double flex options. OG showcased it. I spoke about it last week too. I think Syndra Tristana flex is super powerful. Tristana is not that great into bottom matchups right now because of how strong the AD carries are, but I think in mid lane it still has a lot of potential. Sylas, I think Sylas hasn't been completely figured out yet. There are some cases where if Sylas can play aggro, it's very strong. But that's the thing, that's the weakness of Sylas. He needs to play aggro to win. There is no. It's not even not to win. He needs to play aggro to survive. Q Max Silas seems to work. W Max Silas seems to work. Everything kind of seems to work right now, and there's a lot of strong ultimates floating around. And I think, especially in a world where people forget that Silas will steal your ults, and you are drafting all of these ults that are so powerful. For example, let's say you pick Silas mid into Rumble. That could be very juicy and interesting. You buy Mercs, and all of a sudden your matchup shifts, and you can all in with Conqueror. I think there's a lot of room to experiment with Silas, and I think it's a very strong champion. Very, very strong since the last buffs. So I summarize mid lane. If you want to win solo queue, then look somewhere else, because it's a competitive tier list. For solo queue, pick Aurelion Sol, Zed, and Talon, and enjoy. Okay, we continue. Next one in line, let's do jungle. So of course, Sejuani is not up here yet because in 10.3 she's getting the buffs. This is 10.2, I repeat. We've moved Lee Sin to S tier and Elise to S tier because it is not my call to say if players are good enough or not good enough. There is a lot of Lee Sin players that shouldn't play Lee Sin. That's that's the bottom line. There are a lot of Lee Sin players that shouldn't play Lee Sin. Lee Sin is like the greatest jungle test. I think Gragas, Lee Sin, Elise are, even though Gragas maybe deserves a plus because of how easy it is to execute Gragas, very easy to execute Gragas, he's never weak. Lee Sin, Elise are thriving in the current jungle. Very, very low economy junglers that can always find ways to be useful and impactful early on. Get level 3 fast and steamroll. So I think this is very self-explanatory. If teams are trading Gragas for Elise, I think that's completely fine. Elise gives you a lot of options to draft differently in top and mid. And I think it elevates the draft. Lee Sin as well, one of the strongest, if not the strongest 2v2 champions in the game, with LeBlanc, with Nautilus, with Syndra. You can easily one-shot kids and have a lot of success. But there are junglers that shouldn't play Lee Sin. There are cases where Lee Sin turns into C tier because of how bad some Lee Sin players are. If your name is Jankos, if your name is Klid, then you can play Lee Sin. If your name is, I'm not gonna turn this into a bully session, but you guys get my point exactly, We moved down a lot of champions into B tier. I put Trundle there by mistake. I don't know why Trundle is in B tier. I don't think he belongs. Nevertheless, who cares? It's not that big of a deal. Jarvan and Talia, I put them in A tier because I think they are serviceable. They are serviceable when the S tier champions begin to get banned out, and you have to pick maybe top or mid and third, and enemy pick jungle 2-3, and you don't have the space to pick jungle. Then Jarvan and Talia can definitely be fine. You can work with this. Rek'Sai, Olaf, Kiana. Kiana got a big nerf on 10.2 in terms of jungle. I still think she has some kind of potential because of how small the jungle pool is right now. And Olaf and Rek'Sai seem to be struggling because they just fall off too hard. They fall off too hard, and they are just walking potatoes. So this is the struggle of jungle, right? It's very, very difficult. C tier, Kha'Zix, Nocturne, Graves. Who cares? Useless junglers. Niche, Ornn. I think Ornn jungle still fine. Fits the bill of being useful throughout the game. Hard to invade on. With the level 6 all-in, can be interesting. Can give you something in draft. Zac could also be interesting. Has some of the similar weaknesses to Gragas, getting to level 3. And with the new jungle, I think Zac has a lot of potential to get level 3, and then after level 5, you are a decent champion, good for 2v2. And if in a world where enemies are playing like Misfortune, Aphelios, Senna, sometimes Tankenge, Braum, then Zac definitely has strong scaling. Ivan, I don't know about Ivan. I feel like the whole new jungle is a big nerf, but I threw him up there because who cares? Yeah, the jungle is in such a mess. Is a very, very messy spot. Nidalee, I also saw some play from Nidalee. I also put it in niche because I don't know how to rate it. Hidden OP, Nunu, Skarner. I think these champions will always find a way to be useful. They can early gank with Predator, they can early gank with Snowball, and in Nunu's case, and then they have enough CC later on to always be useful. I think they fit the bill. And 10.3 is the resurrection of Sejuani, and beyond that, we will see what happens to jungle, because that's the time when Karthus will come back, all of this jazz will come back, right? All of the funky stuff. Okay, next in line is support. So the most significant change here is the Thresh movement from B tier to S tier. I think Thresh is what Tahm wants to be, but Thresh is very similar to Lee Sin, meaning there are some support players that shouldn't be allowed to play Thresh. There are some support players that are just too shit to play this champion good enough. Thresh is the Lee Sin of support. It's like the test, right? So the reason why Thresh is S tier is because he does very well into all of the matchups of all the meta champions. Can do fine into Rakan, can do fine into Leona, Nautilus, very good into Braum, fine into Tahm. And also, the Lantern is super huge for your mobility when you're playing Aphelios, you're playing Senna, you're playing Misfortune. So I think Thresh is definitely S tier. Rakan is for the sole purpose of Rakan. I think Rakan is very OP. No one will ever be able to change my mind on this. We need 10 more nerfs. Hard to go wrong with Rakan. A tier, the standard Braum, Tahm, Leona, Nautilus. All of these champions are getting nerfs here and there except Braum. Braum had a bug where his tenacity didn't work on Braum stun. So I guess that's a nerf. But a lot of the Leona changes, Braum changes are coming into 10.3, so they're not relevant to this video. B tier, we have Alistar Gragas. You know, can be fine. I removed Taric from the list, even though Taric maybe belongs. You know, we saw Taric Kalista, Genji played it. They played it to a lot of success, honestly. But I struggle to rate it. I need to see more Kalista Taric before I can rate it, you know, because it's hard to gain an opinion based on one game. That's why either both Kalista and Taric are not on the list. But it seemed really strong in the game because it gained an advantage against Misfortune, which was in the past a counter to Kalista, so I was very confused. Very, very confused. Niche, Bard, Blitz. Blitz might be higher in Prior now, and Thresh is getting higher Prior as well. Galio support, maybe there's some room for it. Not so sure. Pike has a lot of mobility, a lot of roam power, and there are some scenarios where that's what you want from your super role, so I put him in niche. Hidden OP, I put Shen because it is very good against the supports that are being played here, and I wouldn't be surprised if, as I'm talking, Griffin is locking it in or something, because Lehens is a huge Shen player. Very good into Leona, very good into Nautilus, because obviously you put down your W, and then you can block the incoming CC, Leona Q, or Nautilus passive, and then the ult is very powerful to transfer pressure into topside. But right now in the LCK, we see that gameplay is heavily revolved around dragons. I think maybe Shen is more suited for LEC type play, so we'll just have to see. But I think Shen is very strong. Ornn support I think is also possible, but just because I think Ornn in general is very strong, and it gives your team a lot of flexibility. But yeah. Fiddlesticks is also here because I think it's very good. It's playable into Tahm, it's playable into Braum. In some cases you can pick it into Rakan. I think the nerfs to Aftershock are rough for Fiddlesticks, but the Fiddlesticks fear is absurdly OP, and I think that it is something that is going to show up. Nami I put it because there are some nasty combinations you can play with Nami. There are some champions that synergize very well with the E, and for example, if you play LeBlanc Nami, you just add an additional 300 damage to her combo, and even maybe LeBlanc can even one-shot people at the point where she gets Luden's Echo. So I think if you're going to play an Enchanter in the bot lane, it's going to be Nami. Something that I should probably add is Soraka. Let's throw Soraka in there. Because a very big part of this whole Soraka business is that oh, I moved the wrong frame. A big part of the whole Soraka business is that she can get flexed, but I'll just put it here. So when people are looking in Soraka, they are doing it with the intention of flexing, unless you're G2. Right? Okay, that summarizes support. Next in line is Toplane, which had a lot of things I honestly I couldn't predict. Well, maybe I could, but I didn't. The Soraka and the Sona business. Also Sett, he is Vi in this picture. So we have Akali on S tier, and then A tier, Mordekaiser, Sett, Gangplank, Aatrox. Sett is very, very powerful. His numbers are just way too high. 10.3, he got gutted. He got very, very nerfed. We're going to see a lot less of Sett. Gangplank is really OP right now because I think the ult just shifts bot lane. And that's the whole point of Soraka as well. In a world where bot lane is so important, where, GP ult can change the 2v2 bot dynamic, can change the 2v2 mid lane dynamic, and then you just sacrifice top. That's the whole idea of Soraka as well. You have Soraka ultimate, it makes you win every 2v2 mid lane, makes you win every 2v2 bot lane. So usually the way you want to approach it, which we haven't seen yet with Soraka, for those who don't know, is that no one has really attacked Soraka in a very heavy way. So I put it on A tier. I wouldn't want to put it S, even though people have told me that I should put it on S. I think it hasn't been attacked in the right way. We haven't seen Aurelia, Kled, and like let's say an Elise to just perma-gank it, perma-dive it, and then like put Soraka in a position where she just can't do anything. Because I think that's very doable. I think Soraka loses most 2v2s unless she like poked a lot and her all-in is just so weak. I think Soraka, there is a way to deal with Soraka, for sure. Same thing can be said about Sona. And the bottom line is Soraka strong because it secures you 2v2 in both bottom and mid, and that can be game changing, game winning. But I haven't seen it being attacked in the right way. Ornn B tier, everybody loves Ornn. People are saying Ornn should be A tier, but I just don't think so. I think these top laners are much better than Ornn top. They provide more, I think they do more. The move here that I did from my last tier list is that both Rumble and Ornn and Cannon are now on the same tier list. And then I moved down Shen and Camille. I guess Gnar could be on this list too. I forgot about Gnar, but it's so insignificant that I don't want to go back and change the list. I'll just throw him up there for the sake of the culture. That's for the consistency. There is Gnar. Okay. I think Gnar is C tier though. Not so great. Camille is very reliant on Sejuani to be meta. When Sejuani is meta again, then we will see it more and more. Because Sejuani, like the synergy is just too big. Same with Renekton. Same with of course Kled. When Sejuani is meta, melee bruises become meta again. Sett has been, with very different success. We've seen it in Europe, we've seen it in North America, we've seen it in LCK. I think it's very powerful because his numbers are just too high. I think there is also room to put Sett on mid lane, but I hold my reservations. I think Sett mid lane is definitely playable. So that summarizes this week. Meta hasn't changed too much. Some movements here and there. I hope it makes sense. We will have a lot of shifts in 10.3, so I'm looking forward to that. 10.3 is definitely a big one. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you guys on the next one. If you think something's missing, leave a comment below and share your opinion. If you think this list is good, bad, go ahead and let's discuss it. Peace.